So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question because we've got all these problems where people like to figure a way to launder money and get away with completely illegal shit. There's a three spot on the Army Futures Command here in Texas. Nobody wants to talk about. Did they intentionally set up a sabotory process regarding the accounting for the Department of State where they didn't reconcile shit? And additionally, refused to acknowledge the appropriate billing for translators so that they could use the system regarding accounting specifically for and through the Department of State to run a bunch of derivatives, including major dumps connected to bad deals for the gas and oil sector to export internationally and hook up LLCs on actual individuals or clusters of individuals, including in manners that availed themselves of anonymized medical billings that were used as some form of derivative agreement expected to be provided in lieu of a official legal tender currency as a form of payment, and then just decide that they were going to bankrupt the LLC. And when they bankrupted the small business, they terminated the business. And when they killed the account, it ended up literally resulting in killing people assigned as or in connection with assets associated with that account. It's literally practically how I understand it's working on one level. And that the nanotech and biotech factor has to do with the fact that there were pre-programmed pathogens that had been bioengineered to be activated later through a electronic warfare scheme that would then trigger them for activation, and that they had beta tested this for at least 3 years prior to the announcement of COVID-19, as I personally witnessed in at least Chicago and in an effort in Houston. And that in the course of doing that, they set up futures based on what ended up happening with the reporting. And then they waited for a certain amount of time before they swapped those futures out. And a major thing that happened in regards to that is that last summer, when the 10-year came due on major deals that were set up by AIG as a result of the banking bailout, that there was a huge transfer of assets from the United States over to Asia. And they ended up correlating specifically with a conference from Citibank. And then 6 months after the original first issue of the COVID relief, Citibank had a huge stock issue. And now they've swapped that to Bank of America. And in the meantime, what nobody's talked about is that there was some sort of conference where a whole bunch of Asian countries, and what is identified as Asian is not explicitly discussed, came up with some sort of trade compact that the United States was not a part of. And the flip is that that time frame is coming due very soon. Very soon. Are they going to acknowledge this? Are they going? See, this isn't like about. I'm not even like personally very concerned about somebody's concept of whether or not their personal sovereignty has been encroached upon, because everybody's has in a particular way, right? And so we gotta make sure that we deal with that. But we're talking about the thing about these COVID reports is that these COVID reports also are futures. And so everything that's happened, including the attempt to launder money and to mischaracterize certain things, including at a completely debased and discounted level, ends up getting swapped out. And the major problem has been that primary source information, like the reports for the Office of Comptroller of Currency, for instance, like the Federal Open Markets Committee reports, including the ones from the end of 2018, have been changed. And you can't, and the actual accessible information online has been changed. The actual electronic records for the government documents have been changed. So when those futures were set up, the time frames during which those futures were originally set up, they were set up under one context. But by the time they get swapped, if you try to cross-reference or get information to understand what it is you're actually getting, You're getting completely misrepresentative information, especially if you're dealing with anything having to do with swaps that have to deal with the real estate market, or if you're dealing with swaps that have to do with outlays connected to the COVID 19 response in certain context, right? And so, for instance, if you're dealing, this is the major thing that nobody's answered. Where is the information that was available at the beginning? Somebody literally had to put a virus onto my computer so that when I plugged in my fucking thumb drive to get old information, they wiped out the evidence I had from April and May of last year. Why? Because during April and May of last year, there were public media reports on, among other things, the numbers of children that were being killed in Italy based upon infection by COVID 19. You can't find that information online anymore, and somebody deleted from my evidence, among other things, the reports and the articles that were available at the time about that. Who thought they had the authority to do that? Were they child accounts connected to shell accounts? And now what? Are you trying to dump that on Italian mafia? Are you trying to dump that on Italian mafia while you cover up for what the actual implications are so that you can use a fake trial of them as insurance on how pervasive organized crime in the United States actually fucking is? Are you actually aiding and abetting an abuse of judicial process in another country because you expect them to underwrite the political risk insurance on covering the ass of the refusal of the American Congress to hold abuses of office accountable? What do you think is going to happen as a result of that?